doing this for me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can you start out by just introducing yourself?
Okay, am I supposed to look here?
I'm not really sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
So, I'm Betty Wiseman, and I'm 80 years old and retired from Belmont, but back doing whatever God wants me to do here. And today it's you with an interview.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So you've been at Belmont for a while, and I was wondering if you would share how you came to Belmont and what's made you stay.
I came to Belmont in 1961, right out of high school. I'm from Portland, Tennessee, which is about an hour, 40 miles north of here. I came as an 18 years old, and grew up on a farm, rural area, and that was 62 years ago, and so I spent 4 years here, and then the president, when I was a senior, asked me to stay on and teach in health and physical education, but I would have to get my master's degree. At that time, we didn't have any master's programs, so I stayed on campus, worked in the Dean of Students office, and went to Peabody College, which is near here, across from Vanderbilt, a part of Vanderbilt now. Got my master's degree in teaching, and so that began my career here. That's been a long time ago. And the reason I stayed here, ultimately, I know that it was God's purpose and plan and will for my life. Maybe didn't know that at the time, but the older you get, the more clearly you see when you look back and see God's hand on it all. And I really, I probably stayed here and fell in love with the university because of the people and their investment in me, people who invested in my life, and that's why I continue to come and invest in other people's lives today. I think I'm giving back to what's been given to me.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Yeah.
So what leadership roles have you had within the Belmont community?
Wow. When I was a student, I was in a lot of student activities and student government leadership, and housing, dorm counselor, dorm monitor, whatever, and I always took leadership roles even in high school. And then I was on the faculty and helped start the very first faculty senate on campus during that period of time. It was also during that first couple of years that I started women's sports at Belmont with the first women's basketball team. That was in 1968, 69. I was on a lot of committees. I was the youngest faculty member for several years, yeah, and was embraced by the older faculty. Let's see, I served 2 years as assistant dean of students when I got out of coaching, along with my teaching. I started women's, actually the Belmont Sports Ministry Program, took student athletes around the world, using sports as a platform for sharing Christ. And that still goes on today. It's still very much a part of who we are here. In fact, we were the very first students to go to other parts of the world and do ministry, sports ministry, and that's still prominent today. And then when we went NCAA, our sports program, of course, advanced, and I was a part of all the women's sports teams that were established. And then when we went from NAI level to Division I, NCAA level, they had to have what they call a women's administrator, an SWA sport for sports. And so I was asked to do that and to work in athletics. My last several years were strictly in athletics, but I taught in the classroom for 40 years. I chaired the department several years in physical education, sports science. So I've done a little bit of everything, whatever the school needed, at that particular point, and as the school evolved. So, and I retired from Belmont in 2013. I came down with breast cancer and decided at 70 I would take care of myself, and I did, and went through a period of time of therapy and those things, and today I'm 10 years free of cancer.
Congratulations.
So I'm a cancer survivor, and so I'm back on campus kind of as an ambassador. The new president, the Joneses, asked me to come, and because I know all the history of Belmont, and I love students. I'm single, never married, and this has been my home, so it's good to be back, and
it's great to have you.
You're my reason for being here today.
Thank you.
So there you go.
Okay, so you started the women's basketball program,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if you would talk a little about your journey to create it and any challenges you faced.
Oh, wow. Well, the first challenge was getting it started, because obviously Belmont was a very small institution. It was less than 400 students when I came in 1961, right out of high school. There were no sports for women. There really were very few sports in high school. I had played basketball and was a pretty good player and could have gone and played some semi-pro ball, but I chose to get my education. But I think the challenges were that, in this area, there was no pattern. I mean, all that I knew was men's sports, and so I was with a lot of men early on in my life. At that point, coaches, going to coaches clinics, learning how to coach, etc. The challenges were money, first of all, finding people to play those first 2 or 3 years until women's sports began to evolve. Belmont is one of the first in the Southeast to have a team and a program, and so there was very little to work with. We used the men's basketballs. At that point, men's and women's basketballs were the same size, and so we got by with using a lot of the men's facilities, but we had very little. We had enough to survive on, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we took sandwiches and 2 old station wagons and traveled and took food to eat out of the cafeteria, and we made do with 1 pair of tennis shoes for the year, where now they have 5 or 6 pair or whatever. And so I think the challenges were the unknown. Resources were limited, and then as a coach, I'm just a girl who wants to see women have an opportunity. And so when I'm with my older players who come back and we visit and hang out and have a good time, we never talk about what we did not have. We just talk about what a great opportunity it was for us to be in the beginning and to be a part of something that's really big now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so the joy of knowing and communicating where we've come from. We have a history, and it's a very prominent history, even before Title IX. That was 4 years before Title IX. So that's kind of the beginning, and if I told you all the details, you might just throw up or laugh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've coached a lot of athletes over the years.
I have.
And what's one trait that you've seen in them that you think makes them a better leader and teammate?
Wow. One trait. That's a good question. Probably the desire within to do something that, and of course over the years it's just gotten to be a fine art almost, but a desire to just be the best that they can be. And for maybe more than that, just the love for the sport, equal opportunity.
Yes. Thank you.
There's a lot of different things that that you could say, but I think, in my experience, just the opportunity. Now it's expected, and girls get a free education when they play sports, and the big universities, and we have scholarships here now. All my players, up until the last 4 years, I coached from 68 to 84. I didn't give a full scholarship until I gave 2 scholarships in 1980. So most of my girls played for a room grant or some books, get their books paid for. They played for the love of the game. Now there are opportunities beyond for the girls, and I just think I think the biggest thing that comes from it is just joy of playing, advancing your God-given talents. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so I know you talked about this just now, but you participated in a lot of mission trips here at Belmont. And how have these experiences changed you and allowed you to become a better leader in person?
Changed everything for me. Everything. God placed a call on my life. I gave my heart and my life to Christ as an 11-year-old because I grew up in the church, in God's Word, and it says in His Word that, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and to give you purpose and meaning and fulfillment in life. At an early age, as a young Christian, I was very active in my church. I studied missions. I was a leader from the time there was leadership opportunities, but I think I was good at basketball, and I wanted to pursue that, and I was active. I was always healthy and active, and I wanted to pursue that. And as you get in life, as you grow and you mature, and you go into different phases of your life, you begin to see things a little bit differently. And as I've always loved people, and I've always basically have given my life away to people, invested my life in other people. And so as I got into sports and traveling a little bit, and then when I gave up basketball, I gave it up because I was teaching full time and I was coaching, and basically my salary was for teaching. And I knew to advance the sport itself and Title IX had come along, and when we were beginning to accept federal funds, early on we didn't because we were a church-related school. And so as I began to move forward in my own life, I began to see and feel God's call to do more ministry-oriented mission-type activities, even here and in the community. And I had given up basketball, and I went on my first overseas mission trip with my church. And I went to South America, and I went to Temuco, which is a very rural area, and it just kind of took me back in time, the early years of my own life on a farm with not a lot. I mean, there was not a lot. We were just basically ordinary people trying to make a living on a farm. It was during that trip I was doing women's ministry with some women from churches over Tennessee, all over the state of Tennessee, and I just remember just by myself at one point outside, and I was looking at some volcanoes in the distance, and I was overwhelmed with God's world, because I grew up in the country, and my world was Nashville and my home, and that was my world for a long time. And then God began to show me more of His world, and I felt Him calling me more into the world. And at that moment, outside, leaning against an old gate in a very distant land, I just felt God saying, "Betty, I've got so much more to show you. Life, there's more for you, and I'm calling you into my world. I want you to see it through my eyes and not yours." And I was humbled to the core, and it was during that time that I went into some schools and communities, and these children in these schools, elementary schools, it broke my heart because they didn't have anything to play with. They didn't have any balls or like we have in our schools here. And I started thinking about how blessed I had been to start this basketball program. And I traveled a lot, and I could pick up a ball anytime I wanted to. And so I was humbled to the core that there's a big world out there, and there are needs, simple things like things for children to play with in schools. So I came back to Belmont, and I was getting ready for my only sabbatical, like a semester off. And I changed all my plans and went back and spent the rest of the semester with a missionary that I was working with down there. And I just collected duffel bags full of balls and parachute play and all kinds of activities. And I just went into these schools and communities and worked with kids and in schools, and I just saw the joy on kids and young people's faces when they began to experience some things that I experience every day here. And that changed everything for me. So when I came back, and then we were under the Tennessee Baptist Convention then, and they had called the university, the School of Religion, and wanted a sports team to go to Poland. They had a partnership, and nobody in the School of Religion knew anything about how to do that, and they called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I didn't know how to do it either, but I knew I could. I knew I loved people, and I have students, and I have student athletes. So in 1995, I took my first team, spring break, and I took athletes to Poland and went into Polish schools and high schools and talked to kids. We would talk in classes, and then we would play games and activities with them using basketball. And that basketball that I gave up an opportunity to play semi-professional basketball as an 18-year-old to come to Belmont. God gave me that back with starting this basketball program. I gave up the basketball coaching here, and just was teaching, and God called me to take that basketball and go all over the world and use it to share Christ ministry. Then I began taking soccer. I never took just one team players. We would do soccer, whatever. Even took footballs and played football. But sports is a universal language, and when you walk down the street and with college athletes, I mean, you'll gather a crowd in just no time. And then you play with them, etc., and do skills, and they watch us play, and then you earn the right and the privilege to sit them down and say, hey, I'm going to tell you why we're really here. And so you share the gospel, who Christ is, the difference he makes in your life, and this is how, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing, and even since during this whole time, I went on mission trips with my church, with medical teams, and I just go and sit and share the gospel. All the doctors, they see me before they see the doctors, so it's just a part of the ministry. So I've been all over the world, mm-hmm. and here I am, sitting here with you, which I think is just as important as anything else I've ever done. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, no, yes, Em, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I'm telling you more than you want to know, but you can.
Oh, no, Em, it's perfect.
You can take it and do whatever you want with it.
Oh, no, Em, thank you so much. So what experiences have been the most influential into shaping you into who you are today?
Ooh. I think, first of all, I think God has a plan for everybody's life. And so much of that plan is getting to a certain point. I think he's still working out his plan in my life. So I think everything that I've been able to do is just a piece of that plan. You know, when I was retired and dealing with cancer and therapy, radiation, etc., I did a lot of puzzles, 1,000-piece puzzles at my home. I'd never been still. I was forced to be still for a whole year, practically, and so I'd work these puzzles, and I think life teaches you things, and I could talk to you about that for 2 hours, but I began to see as I put these 1,000-piece puzzles together that you're hunting for pieces, and you finally get something, and it's an aha moment when you say, that's okay. So I began to see my life as a puzzle, and it's God's puzzle. And only when we're ready for something else does he give us that next piece to our life. And that's the aha moment in my life where I realized that everything that I've done is a part of a puzzle of my life. You know, I'm getting older, and the older I get, the more clearly I see these pieces that have put, and I see stories. I see how the people, these missionaries have influenced my life. I see how different areas of my life, and it's not all, I haven't been perfect by any means, and there I have some regrets, but everybody does. But I'm beginning to see the big picture now and the puzzle, and there are some more pieces to put in and put together, but every little piece, I think, of your life is just part of the process. And if I could say anything to you today, the prize is always in the process. The prize is always in the process. You come in here as a freshman, and you know that you want to graduate out here, and this diploma is your goal. But honey, what happens to you between here and here is the real prize. And the older you get, you'll see that. And I could see that my college days at Belmont and the people, the experiences were very significant pieces of the puzzle. And in that puzzle, you got to do the outline first, because, and this is what you're doing now, the outline of your life. And then you're going to be starting putting these pieces and working toward the very last piece. And for me, that's when I see Jesus face to face. That's just who I am.
Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you.
I hope this makes sense to you.
Yes, no, it does. So how would you characterize your leadership style?
Wow. I would characterize it as teamwork, building a team, being a leader, but designating responsibilities, allowing people to perform those activities, being there as an advisor, and collaboration, leadership. There has to be a leader, and there has to be some sub leaders, but trying to get the people in the outlying area, a little bit outside the box, to come in and again, it's a piece of a puzzle that you're working together in a smaller realm of thinking, so to speak. Maybe I would characterize it as collaboration with designated responsibilities, and encouraging and facilitating people, building people up. It's like building a house together for the final pieces.
Thank you. Okay. How do you learn from and overcome any failures or obstacles?
Well, I go back to the old philosophy that I learned in college. You learn by doing. The old John Dewey theory. They may not even teach that now. I don't even know. But I think my cancer journey helped me look back at my own life and how I've been an overcomer. I feel like I've been gifted and blessed throughout my life, but I had to overcome. I overcame homesickness. I was an hour away from home when I came here as a freshman, and I was so homesick I thought I would die. And my parents, we cried together on the phone. I wanted to go home, and they asked me to stay one semester just to see. Just, Betty, we want you home too, but we know that, I owe my parents so much. But I know that I had to overcome that. And, I was homesick, and then after a semester I got adjusted, and it was a whole different world to me here. If I had gone somewhere else, it would have been the same thing, because I lived in this little bubble of a little small country town, and my life revolved around home and church and school. So I had to overcome that. And then, I know I've had a blessed life, and I've been protected somewhat here, and yet I've been out in the world. But when I had breast cancer, and something that I had no control over took control of my life, and I've basically been a physical education health teacher. I've been very healthy. I've watched what I eat. I've been an exercise guru, and you know, I get up and walk every morning. And so I was proud that, I guess pride is a part of it, of the fact that I have been disciplined all my life. I'm a disciplinarian, and I'm disciplined in my own life, but cancer invaded my body, and I was angry. I wasn't angry that so much that I had it, but that something that I had no control over, cancer, came in and took control of me for over a year, and I had to go through that, and so it caused me to have to be still, to give up things, to sit, to take care of getting rid of this. I went through radiation for 7 weeks straight, every day. That just took everything out of me physically. And I never asked God. I never said, why me? I cried out to God a lot. Help me. And so I was in a whole new world with my body and mind and my spirit. But I spent a lot of time in God's Word, and little by little I began to recover, and I kept asking God, what's next? What next? I'm 70. I just turned 71. I kept saying, what next? And I know that He said this to me as only He could. He said, Betty, it's not what anymore. It's who. It's about who. Who am I going to put in your life? Really, it's always been about who. It's not what you do. It's about who. Every day. Who's going to need you? Who do you need to reach out to? Who is going to be before you? And so I began, since that cancer journey, just who every day. And so you're my who today.
Thank you.
Is that pretty cool?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
And I look at my calendar, and I have this messy calendar at home, and it has just people's names every day, and so I don't see it as what am I doing tomorrow. It's who tomorrow, who, and I like that because who is a whole lot more important than what.
Yes, ma'am.
So many times.
Thank
For
you.
whatever that's worth.
Thank you. Okay, so who or what has been your greatest influence?
It began with my parents. My mom and dad were just simple, ordinary people. My dad was the youngest of 12, and he had an 8th grade education. My mother graduated from high school, and they married, and my mother worked at home, and then she worked as a county registrar for a while in the county seat of Gallatin. But they set the standard for me. But I've always had people in my church, teachers, people who invested their lives. They spoke into my life just like I'm trying to do to you today, and for whatever you're going to use this for. It's all about people. When I came to Belmont, the college president, Dr. Gabhart, he was so instrumental in my life. I never applied for a job, Eliza. I've never filled out an application for a job except something in high school that I might do in the summer, because he saw something in me that he valued that was conducive to who Belmont was. every president, I've been under all 4 of the last 5 presidents, and teachers and ministers, my pastors. It's all about people in your life. And again, you look back and see that just 2 weeks ago, I had 6 girls come to breakfast, meet me at Cracker Barrel, and who played basketball for me on the second team in 1969. They all came in, and then they came to my condo. I live in a 55+ community, and we sat and reminisced, and we all told stories, reminisced, and there were tears and there was laughter. I pulled out all these Belmont t-shirts and out of my closet from sports, and they just took t-shirts home. But through the whole thing, it's about people. It's about people, investing yourself in people and others. So the more people you know, that you can give yourself away, then it will be given back to you tenfold. It has with me all my life.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the last question, but what advice would you give to somebody who wants to become a leader within their community?
Be a people person. Look outside yourself. Always see people as people of value and worth. How can you? How can I give myself away in a productive way? Invest in other people. Be willing to meet. Be willing to go into uncomfortable situations and listen, observe, ask questions. If I were you, and I say this to students a lot because it was said to me, and I used to tell my students when I was teaching, find you an older person or older persons that you can sit at their feet and ask questions. The more knowledge that you gain from other people who have lived their lives, sit at the feet of people and ask questions. And I would say to you, even today, take some time and sit down with your family, your parents, your grandparents, and ask them questions. What happened? There are questions I wish I'd asked my grandparents. I only knew my grandmothers. My grandfathers passed before I was born. But tell me about how you grew up. Tell me about some of your frustrations. Tell me. We're so caught up in where we are and where we're going and what we're doing and what's next and getting this and making this grade and getting this paper done that we don't take the time to know about our ancestors. You'll learn a lot about yourself through your family, parents, grandparents. Ask questions. Ask questions. Be willing to listen. I think I've been a good listener through the years. If I'm in a group, I'm usually not the one who's always out in front. I'm listening, I'm observing, and I'm taking things in. And then when the time comes, then the leadership comes from listening first and establishing yourself and think first. I don't know if that's what you need to hear or not, but I think it's important. If there's an opportunity and you feel, even if it's a challenge, do it. Do it. The more things you do now, the more you're going to be ready for the next step.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this with me today.
Well, thank you. I hope you get a good grade.
Thank you.